All right, welcome back, everyone, to another segment of Come Fly with Us, inside information about insurance. And we're back with Cody Gladney. Cody, we've got another question that I find very interesting, and it could turn into a slippery slope for a lot of folks. But I've had people tell me, you know what, I don't have a mortgage on my house. I'm just going to self-insure. I'm not going to worry about it. If anything happens, I'll pay for it out of pocket. How can that be risky to a homeowner? And I'm sure there's lots of different ways, but let's talk about a few different ways how that can be risky to a homeowner.
Sure. So obviously, your house burns down to the ground and you're self-insured. That means that you're not going to receive any money from an insurance company, right? So that could be a big risk on a large asset that you have.
Yeah.
So I think it's always worth at least getting pricing. And a lot of times you can even get maybe just even a basic policy. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can get something with a really large deductible where, yes, you're self-insuring a large portion of that home.
Right.
But at the same point, in a catastrophe situation, at least you're not just left holding the bag.
Yeah, because if you're talking about reconstruction of, even at today's market prices, even just a 1,300 square foot house, man, it's crazy right now. Mm-hmm. With lumber costs and labor gone up. I mean, unless you're independently wealthy, and you can afford to do that, it's a huge risk. Right. And people are really rolling the dice and hoping that Murphy never shows up, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's what insurance is always for, right?
Yeah, so it is.
I would say even if you are independently wealthy, most people would rather spend $1,000 to get $150,
right?
Versus spend $0 and potentially be out $150.
It makes sense financially when you look at it that way. But some people still don't look at it that way, though, and they're just not going to if they're not going to. But you're right. Some people do choose to go with the higher deductibles, which decreases their rate, and then when they have something happen, they forget that they did that, and they're upset, right?
Well,
sometimes.
But
but yeah, there are different things you can do to actually get your rate down. And if you're willing to go with a higher deductible, we don't recommend it. We always try to go with the lowest deductible we can, just because when something happens like that, most people generally don't have a large amount of money set aside to take care of a $40,000 water claim on their own. So, you've got a deductible, insurance is going to take care of the rest. It's a little bit easier to swallow that way, right?
For the most part.
For the most part. I mean, anytime, let's just face it, anytime something catastrophic happens to your home, that's where your life is, your family, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be a fun experience. But just imagine compounding that with the fact that you don't have insurance. And now what are we going to do? Are we homeless for 6 months to a year until we can figure out how we're going to rebuild? Are you going to be forced to sell your lot and hope you can find something else with the money that you sold the lot for? I mean, we just had a situation where we sold a house to a lady and her granddaughter. They had a house burned down, and they had to use all the money from the insurance, not only for the dwelling, but for their contents, and the money that they sold the lot for to even be able to afford a house. And it wasn't a very big house. It was only $180,000. They paid cash for it, but it took all their money out of all the proceeds from all those things. So you can imagine they're having to start over with all their contents, all their personal belongings, all that kind of stuff. At least they had that to be able to take that step to do that. But I mean, that's a big loss,
Most people's largest purchase or largest asset that they ever have is their home.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and like you said, a lot of people don't realize, like, it's not always just the structure that we're worried about also, right? A lot of times you have a lot of contents.
Right.
What if you're in a claim where what if you're in a situation where your dog bites somebody and you're sued? Most homeowners policies include liability as well, right?
Right.
So,
oh, yeah.
there's lots of different factors that you are taking on if you are self-insuring your home that maybe you weren't aware of in the beginning.
Right, right. Well, and like you said, that's a good point. And our job and the way we do things, and I know the way you and Marcus have taught me is you always want to educate the client on what they're getting, what they could potentially be at risk for, and if they make a decision to take out 1, 2, 3 endorsements, what it's going to do to them as far as the risk factor. And then once we educate them, if they make an educated decision and then decide to do what they're going to do, at least we've educated them and they know, okay, now I have the knowledge. I'm basing my decision off this knowledge. Then it's a little bit easier for us to not be so worried about them, although we try to encourage, everything we suggest is for your full benefit. We really want to take care of our clients, and we don't want to call 6 months down the road that says, hey, you really should have really forced me to take that $50 water endorsement, and now I've got a $35,000 water claim that's not covered because I skipped that endorsement to save $40-$50 a year.
Right. Our job is a risk manager.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
For risk management professionals
Right.
is one way you would look at it, right?
Right.
So we're going to do our best to try to protect our clients as best we can.
Oh, exactly. I don't want that phone call 6 months down the road. I mean, and a perfect scenario, I know the video is going a little long, but perfect scenario, sold a house to a police officer, 2 bathrooms in the house, 2-story house, both bathrooms upstairs. I was going over the water endorsements with him. He's like, do I really need all this? Yeah, you really do. Both of your bathrooms are upstairs. If you ever have anything happen, a leak, an overflow, anything like that, water goes downhill. It's going to go downhill fast. And if you're not home to stop it, it's going to do a lot of damage. 3 days after he closed, he calls me after working night shift. Says, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you made me take those endorsements. I came home and my toilet has been overflowing all night long. Water's in my garage. It's down my stairwell. It's in my living room. It went through all the walls. Thank you so much. I'm like, I'm glad I educated him and made him take those endorsements. And then about 3 weeks later, when the adjuster went out there, he called me all excited. And I said, what's going on? He goes, the adjuster just left. And most people aren't that excited when the adjuster leaves, right?
Right.
But he said, you wrote the policy the right way. Everything's covered. They recommended some other work needs to be done based on the water damage. He was so excited. Okay, I feel like I did my job in protecting that client. He was happy. Even though he had a big water claim, he was happy. But the fact is, he understood now why I was trying to get him to take all those endorsements. And he was very, very thankful that he did, because, I mean, I think it ended up being it was about $35,000, $40,000 worth of damage. And had he just saved that $50, he would have not been very happy.
Water is a very dangerous animal, right? Because it can get into walls, it soaks up sheetrock. Yeah. And then if it's not dried out properly, you got mold issues. Yeah. So
it just compounds. The problems just compound. If you don't get on it right away, the problems do just compound. And I mean, behind wind and hail, it's number 2 in the state of Texas, right?
That's correct.
So there you go. So there you go. There's the answer to should I self-insure. We're going to inform you the best we can and educate you of why you should have insurance, or at least have some sort of insurance. Even if you go with higher deductibles. So take that information, do with it what you will. If you have any questions or need a quote from us, reach out jim.encina@goosehead.com or 469-585-6012. We appreciate you watching all the videos. Share them with your friends and family, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.